Hello, and welcome to another episode of If My Feet Could Talk, the podcast where I talk about running in various forms, the adventures our feet have taken us on, mental health, and other topics, whether it's by myself or with a guest that I get on. I've received some amazing feedback over the last few weeks reference my podcast. People are enjoying it, and it's gone global from America, Canada, Germany, Finland, Ireland. Loads of places are listening to it, and it's really great because if it helps just one person in the world, some of the things that we talk about, then maybe the world could be a better place. Now, my next guest on the show is no stranger to putting himself through and beyond his comfort zone. He's not just an ultra runner, and he's not just an Ironman. He's an extreme version of these disciplines of sport. Listeners and viewers, I give you a good friend of mine, Mr. James Page. Okay, and we're recording. Hello, James, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good, mate. Yeah, how are you?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well. Still plodding away. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Yeah, we've had. I've just got back. Actually, we've been out with two of our kids. Went down to Dartmoor, which is just stunning down there. So we just
Well,
had
I was on Dartmoor this morning.
whereabouts?
Postbridge Way.
Okay, we were sort of all the tours around Haytor, and then had our lunch at Haytor, and then came back
All right,
down.
so we were in the vicinity somewhere, like on Dartmoor together. How have you been? How have you been finding the lockdown with you and your family? Have you been all right?
Yeah, no, it's not too bad actually. Both myself and my wife were both working from home for a period of time, and then we had three of our older children home with us from university. One of our eldest is over in France. He came back from France, from Paris, and then we had the other two slightly younger ones that are also from uni. So it was a bit mad, busy with them here. Food bill was like
Gone straight
rocketed
up.
through the roof.
It must be strange having
And,
having them around the house again once you've let them go to university, and now they've come back for obviously the circumstances. It must have been strange having them back under one roof again.
yeah, very, very weird because they're used to living in student houses, so they don't clean up after themselves, and it's quite frustrating. But do you know what? We looked at the positive of it, and it's an opportunity to spend time with the kids that we would never have had.
Definitely.
To have them home and on a Friday night or Saturday night playing Monopoly, sitting around we were doing I think it was every Saturday we were doing like a quiz. So we'd all write 5 or 10 questions, and it got more and more competitive each week as it went on. But yeah, really good fun. My wife's back at work now, and I'm still working from home. So it's bad. And it's. I was a bit worried about the whole, putting weight on whilst you're sort of locked down and everything else, as people do. But which is why I sort of then set a challenge for myself just to keep myself ticking over and giving me that incentive to go out. And actually probably lost weight in lockdown, albeit ate just as much food, if not more. But it's been okay. Well, and you realise how stressful it is going out. And when you're in the sort of the safety of your own house, it's really easy, isn't it? And we were literally taking it in turns, myself and Wendy, just to go shopping once every week. We would take it in turns. So we only really went out every other week, to be honest, which was really nice, really nice. So yeah, what about you? How did you find it?
We've been pretty good, to be fair, because you know me, I'm used to being away. I'm used to having that solitary confinement of four walls. So the fact that I was not told to stay inside because there was no need for me to stay inside, I've not had any symptoms or anything like that. I made sure I made the most of it going out, running from my doorstep. I had that routine set, and that's worked. The only thing that sort of really we struggle a bit is a little bit with our son. Bless him, he's missing his friends, schooling and stuff like that. So he's had a couple of meltdowns, and then last night was actually the worst meltdown we've had with him, is because we had confirmation our August holiday to America was cancelled, and obviously he was looking forward to it. And he just broke down during his live cup session. So we had to deal with that last night, and it's quite stressful for a young mind. We're a bit more resilient, aren't we? We
definitely
sort of look after ourselves to a certain degree, but when they're very young, it's hard for them. So yeah, we're all right, mate. We've coped all right. It is what it is, and we're moving forwards, which is quite nice. Anyway, bring us back into the show. So, can you give the listeners and the viewers a little bit about about you? So, where you're from, where you grew up, and what you do.
Well, I was born in Plymouth. My dad was in the Navy, Royal Navy, and I suppose we moved around a lot. Didn't really do much sport or anything whilst I was younger. I suppose I played football from about sort of 11 till about 18, reasonable standard, and ran, did a bit of cross country, that sort of thing. And then you sort of hit your 20s, and then it all goes wrong, doesn't it? you drink a lot, you eat a lot, you do no exercise, and life sort of life disappears. And I suppose between 20 and 30, it was a reasonably stressful time in my life for a number of reasons. And then you wake up one day and you think, do you know what? You're a mess. Because I was massively overweight, big drinker, and you look at yourself in the mirror, you see something on the TV, and you become inspired by it, and you think, do you know what? I'm going to change my life, and you sort of turn it around. So, didn't really properly find, I suppose triathlon was my first love, I suppose, and I found that at about 30, really. So. Yeah.
See, your story there is so familiar. I mean, my background is pretty much exactly the same. I was overweight, drinking lots. I was at bottom of the barrel. Late in life, finding the love for our sport of running and what have you. And we're very similar to lots of other people around the world. How they get into later on in life, how we get into these sports of triathlon, running, ultra running, and all that sort of stuff, because something finally clicks, doesn't it? Something finally flicks that switch that says, right, enough's enough. We need to do something here.
I suppose what you find, and obviously we've got lots of friends in this world, and what you find is that everyone's got some sort of baggage or a story or a reason for what they're doing, and maybe that's what pushes them, that's what helps them get through things because of the hard times that they maybe have gone through previously. Everyone's got a story, haven't they?
Yeah, and I think most of the extreme endurance runners like yourself and myself that like to push themselves beyond what's classed as normal are usually found they've got a major backstory, whether it's mental health or whether it's physical health or something that keeps them driving forwards so they don't fall back into that situation. I know for me, I never want to get back to a 20 stone unhealthy person again. I never want to be that person that was standing on the edge of the cliffs wanting to jump off. I never want to go there again. You know, for a lot of people, you know, their backstories is what keeps them pushing them forwards now and doing what we do best, really. It's mad the world, you know, the world of discipline that we're in, that we have that the backstories, but that's what drives us, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm leap years away from the man I used to be in my 20s. That's for sure. You know, changed massively, and you know, and far more positively than you know. Who knows what would have happened to me if I'd carried on the way I had carried on. You know, it's you know, I'm just grateful for the change, really.
So when you were growing up, you briefly mentioned it. Where are you from? You said you were from Plymouth, but what part of Plymouth was it? You know, the Swilly area, the roughish area, or were you or in a reasonably good area because your dad was in the Navy?
I don't really remember. We lived there twice as a kid. You know, I was born there. We moved away and then we moved back because, you know, as you know, you normally stay in a place for a couple of years and then you move on. And you know, just as you're starting to settle in and make friends, and it's then time to move to the next married quarters somewhere. So we travelled all around. So I don't remember. I remember there being a Jubilee party and they're still dressing up in paper mache, or you know that funny paper stuff. But then we moved around a lot. We lived in America for about 3 years as well, in the early '80s. And then my dad retired out in the Navy, and he was a chef, so he bought a restaurant up in Grimsby of all places. And we literally at sort of 13, I moved up to Grimsby, which is where I sort of then, you know, grew up until I moved to London to work. But yeah.
So obviously you mentioned you were a bit sporty as a child, but nothing really. You played a bit of football and all that sort of stuff, like most children. But when did you start getting into running? When did you start? Obviously, you mentioned triathlon was your first thing, but part of that is obviously running. But when did you find, you know, I'm going to start giving this a go?
I suppose, you know, originally, I mean, I was about just under 18 stone. So, and I remember seeing the Olympics when they were in Athens. I think must have been 2004, and saw it, the triathlon, blown away by that, and just thought, you know, one day I'll do that. And I don't know if you've heard of it. There was prior to that, seeing that, my daughter was born with lots of medical conditions in 2001, and I did a race to raise money for the hospital called the Tough Guy, up in sort of Wolverhampton, Birmingham way, where it was run by a guy called Mr. Mouse. He used to run around for about 6 or 7 miles. They did a summer and a winter. You'd run around for 6 or 7 miles, then you do 2 laps of an obstacle course, which was about 1.5 miles long. I did that to raise money, and I was quite big at that point. And that was the sort of start of it, really. Then I enjoyed the challenge of that. Went back and did that a number of times, both the summer and the winter. And gradually brought my weight down to about sort of 15 stone. And it wasn't until I suppose I got into triathlon and started on the short distance that I started to, you know, I was consistently running, swimming and cycling. And that combined sort of cross training. I didn't seem to get injured. I just seemed to, you know, you then do like a sprint triathlon, then you do an Olympic, then you do like a half Ironman and an Ironman, and then it sort of goes on from there. So during doing the triathlons, I would do 10K races, do half marathons, and would do some marathons as well. But not because of loving running, because I didn't like running or swimming, really. I just liked cycling my bike.
Cycling,
But
you didn't fancy just doing a cycle and that was it at that point?
No, I liked the different disciplines. Not necessarily on their own. I like doing them together. And I liked the fact that it almost prevented injuries, because one of my good friends, he was just running all the time, and every other week he had a niggle here and a niggle there. So I was thinking, well, I'm not getting this, not because I'm not training hard. I think it was just because I wasn't bashing myself up just running constantly or swimming or cycling. I was mixing it all up. And then I suppose then the reason I found running, and certainly long distance running, is is the people that you meet and the places you can go, and that's what sort of drew me to it. But I suppose I did it, the longer stuff, purely because at 40 I thought I was having my midlife crisis, and just thought, you know what can I do? I know I'll do a double Ironman, which involved then like a 52-mile run at the end of a big swim and a big cycle. So I thought, well, I'm going to need to get into running more, and then started running more, and would do some ultras and things, and then your runs just become longer, and you just end up running more because you're going to do a greater distance. And then, so it was probably in 2012 I did a double Ironman. So then the year before, so 2011, started to do longer stuff and start to do ultras and things, and I loved, and I suppose what was
your first ultra?
So I did the Imber Ultra,
right,
which is up around the Salisbury Plains.
Yeah.
And again, had no idea what I'd let myself in for, really. And I remember sort of I'd set off with one of my friends who I knew. She had done it before, and we set off together, and then we just, after about 5 or 6 miles, we sort of went our separate ways. And you just chat to people along the way, and that whole, every sort of 10k there was something to eat, and that was about 33 miles, and I actually didn't do too bad at that. And when I got round to the finish, I was just sitting there just like, wow, this is pretty cool in the sun. And then I saw a guy who I've worked with previously, who I didn't know was into who I didn't know who was going to be there, but he's a guy that he's done marathon dressage, he's done loads of other cool races, and I beat him by about 5 minutes. And I thought, wow, that was all right then. Quite enjoyed that. But just the camaraderie and just chatting to people and how helpful people are. And I didn't find that so much at the shorter races, the faster races.
This is something I talked to with, I think it was Pete Drummond. The road racing community is very not small, but it's very self-centered, isn't it? It's very about PBs and stuff like that. And they're not worried about waiting for the last person to come across the line. Where in the extreme distance running, especially in the ultra community, you find that the winner's still waiting at the end, waiting for that last person, cheering them on. If someone's fallen over, someone's willing to stop. You know what I mean? They're not worried, I've got a second to beat my PB. No, they'll stop and give up their race to help someone else, whether it's help them complete it or whether it's help them just to, get some attention until the medic comes up, And I think that's the big difference between the smaller distances and the endurance distances that we do. I think our community.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, and I'm not sort of eating up the shorter races and stuff, because they've got a place, and lots of people really love those, and and when I did them, I really enjoyed them. But I wouldn't go and do a 10k race necessarily, because I'll go and run 10k around the woods instead, because I'll get more from that than running with people that are just there focused, and there's a place for that. But what I love is the fact that you can go from A to B in a beautiful place off-road, and you just meet some really interesting people, really nice people who you're at an aid station, and you're quite happy to sit and talk, because I'm not going there to win. I'm a little bit competitive, but I'm not super competitive. I'm going there to meet, for the experience, and it's everything that brings it all together that makes it.
So if we scroll back a bit, when you first started your training for your triathlon and stuff like that, what was your first sort of running race that you did? Was it a local 5k, 10k?
Do you know what? I can't remember, to be honest. I can't remember. It was a 10k, whether it was in Bristol or Taunton or somewhere.
Can you remember what it was like though when you first crossed that finish line?
Well, it's horrendous. It's like everything, isn't it?
Yeah,
I remember doing races as you
yeah,
go along, and you've crossed the line, and you're absolutely spent, and it's the worst feeling that you've ever had. And I've been at the end of a race sitting at the curb crying because it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I look back now and I think, wow, if that was the hardest thing you ever did then,
yeah,
man. And it's all relative, people. What I get annoyed about is people, will say, "Oh, I'm doing a 5K. I'm doing couch to 5K, couch to 5K," but you won't be interested in that. And I think, no, I'm really interested in that, because if you're doing something and you're out there, then fair play to you, and I'll support you, and I'll come along and cheer you or whatever, or I'll come and have a run with you and I'll help you along the way. I'm not.
it's
It's
part of the journey, isn't it?
yeah,
We all start somewhere. We don't just literally put on our trainers and run 50 miles for your first ever run. It doesn't happen that way. Yes,
some
we
people
may,
do.
yes, we may go like couch to marathon or couch to ultra, but that first ever run isn't that simple, is it? It's hard putting those shoes on and
Mm,
getting out that front door, and then you're dying at the end. Or whether it's that first race, just standing on that start line for the
yeah.
first time is a big thing. Whether it's a 5K or whether it's a marathon, it doesn't matter. That first race,
Yeah,
it's a big thing for people.
exactly. I remember running a mile on a treadmill, and it was massive. It was massive for me. I just thought, wow, I've just run a whole mile without stopping on a treadmill. This is amazing. For me, it was like, wow, this is amazing. Um, yeah, but and um, I suppose it just gets hard. It just gets harder, doesn't it? And as you get older, I mean, I suppose that sometimes I think, why didn't I do something when I was younger? Why did I do some running or do some cycling or something? Yeah, I've missed out on that opportunity, which is why I suppose why I try and encourage my kids now to do stuff, because it's really important. Don't lose these years by just wasting them away, really, when there's so many opportunities and things out there to do and explore.
Definitely. And I think because you're doing it at the age that we're doing it at, you're showing to them that if we can do it at 30s, 40s, 50s, then they can do it in their 20s. You know,
Yeah,
there's no reason why people can't go out and do something amazing.
yeah,
I have to apologise for that. That's my workman, if you can hear that.
excellent. Yeah,
Yeah. We're having a pergola built at the moment, bless him. So obviously you mentioned you then stepped in and started doing the doubles and the triples and stuff like that. When did you find the love for the brutal events like the Oneer and the brutal Ironman series, if you want to call it that way?
yeah.
Treble.
So I was turning 40
Yeah,
in 2012. The I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to push myself, and I didn't want to go and have a big party and celebrate and be, and get drunk and go, yay, 40. I just wanted to go and really test my mind and body, I suppose. So I had searched, I had saw brutal events and thought, wow, that looks really cool, and it's in Wales. And Wales for me, really special place. I mean, as a younger kid. I've been up there a number of times, went back a couple of times as an adult, and then proposed to my wife on the summit of Snowdon. Snowdonia and North Wales, absolutely love it up there. So I thought, what better place to go and spend my 40th doing something I love in a beautiful place with friends and family that all came along to support me. So that was sort of 2012, and just blown away by brutal, really. And Claire, who runs it, who was running it then, I remember didn't really have much to do with her, throughout the race. I know, beforehand, just sort of emailing to say, does anyone know about this? And what I found was that she was really happy to share information, put me in touch with somebody else, put me in touch with other people that were doing it, or who had done it. So there was almost a sense of community already before I'd even got there. And then when you got there,
yeah,
there was only a small handful of us, maybe, I don't know, maybe 16 people, but it was alongside the other races as well. So the shorter races. And then we were in like a separate tent. So, and everybody had crew, because you can't do these things on your own. You need, friends and family to come and sacrifice their weekend to come and support you and look after you. So you got to know the other competitors and the other competitors' families and friends. Your crew got to know them, and everyone started to, everyone supported each other. And because it was a looped, it was a looped event, both for the bike and the run. You got to see the same people over and over again, and just blown away. And I remember, it's really funny actually. On the website, it said all finishers will get a medal, long sleeve T-shirt. So this was something that I'd never experienced before, for this double Ironman. And I was just amazed that I'd finished. And to be honest, I had the most awful race ever. I spent the race crying. I spent the race being miserable and grumpy and, quite horrible to my friends and family who had sacrificed their time to come and come and support me. And I was unpleasant company. And I know that now, looking back. But when I finished, and Claire gave me this medal and a T-shirt, and it was a short sleeve T-shirt, and I'm off my head really, I think, at this point, having been up for, I can't remember, it took me about 37 hours. I think it was 30, maybe it wasn't that long. Maybe it was 37 hours. I can't remember. Maybe it was. So I've been up for like 2 days, over 2 days by the time you wake up and everything else. And the first thing I was moaning about when I went across the line was how small the medal was for what I'd achieved, and the fact that, where's my long sleeve T-shirt? And she said, no, it's only. I said, look, and so I'm almost having an argument with it on the finish line about how small my medal was. The fact it didn't even say double on it, it's just the medal. And she was going, no, it does. It's on the label. So it was on the ribbon. But I'm off.
You're delirious, yeah.
Face at this point. And I said, where's it? She said, I said, check your website. It says long sleeve T-shirt. And anyway, so afterwards, I'm sort of my crew then sort of, go away, get away, And then afterwards, I emailed to say, look, thanks. I mean, wow, most amazing experience I've ever had. Thanks ever so much. And if only I had a long sleeve T-shirt. And bless her, she said, I'll send you a hoodie with this long sleeved. I said, no, you don't need to. It's really fine. One of my crew have already bought me one, but that's really cool, really kind. But you don't need to do that. And sort of got to know Claire then. And then, of course, then you look at what other races has she got, and you think, there's a race called the Wunner and the Midnight Mountain Marathon, and there was some other races like the Smugglers Run. And there was like a like a duathlon up at Cadair Idris. So it was just looked, like a really great series of events. And I had such an amazing time meeting people and, in a beautiful surroundings. I just thought, I've got to do one of these other events. And one of my mates actually, and I finished and I said, I'm never, ever doing that again, because it was the hardest thing at that point. And actually, do you know what? Even now, it's probably still the hardest thing I've ever done, is making that leap from like one Ironman to 2 Ironmans. And the stuff after that is easier than that, really, because that I learned a lot about myself by crossing that sort of massive gorge, really. And the following year, so that was 2012. The following year, or maybe it was 2013. One of those 2 years, I can't remember. And then they said they were going to do a triple on the same course, and I thought, wow, that's pretty epic. I fancy a bit of that. And it was like, well, you said you would never do. Well, that was a double I did. This is a triple. This is slightly different.
Yeah.
And then so my training then for the triple, because I'd learned so much about stuff, both about food, nutrition, recovery, and what needs to be put in order to have a more pleasant race. I decided I would do some more ultras, And one of the ultras I would do as training, like a training day, would be the One, which is like an 82-mile run on the Dorset coast, which is just, I mean, you love coastal running. I love the coast. And Dorset at that time was a place I'd never really been to, but been back so many times since, and it's beautiful coastline. And a friend of mine, Grant, we said we'd do it together, and funnily enough, we had seen that race when it was owned by VO2.
Yeah.
And it was you could do it over 3 days, or you could do this thing called the One, which was over 24 hours. And you think, well, how is that even possible? You know, that people run 3 marathons over that distance in that time. That's ridiculous. So we sort of said one day we could do that, and it just transpires because of the brutal, and then it brutal events had taken over the race. It came up, and Grant and I said, "Would let's go and do it. Let's go and do that together as training for the triple, which was later in the year. I think the One is in April, and the brutal was in September in 2015." And we said, "Look, we're going to start and finish together, and it's just going to be 24 hours hanging out with my mate. We're going to run on the beautiful coastline, and we're going to just spend some time with each other and just have a laugh." And he when we first got there, he had a bit of a blip, and he said, "Look, I'm going to put my stuff in the car. I'm going to put it in the headquarters and leave it there because you'll carry on further than me, and I'm going to give up." I said, "No, don't be so stupid. We're doing this together." I mean, it was really nice. I mean, we helped each other at different points in the day when I was having a low or he was having a low, and we did what we set out to do. We spent 24 hours together on the coast. Had a laugh, and we started together and we finished together, and it was just amazing. You know, such a great time, really. And I love that race. That's one of those races where you get your medal and you think, I definitely earned this medal.
Yeah, and it becomes special, doesn't it? It lives long in the memory. You know, those moments. But as you were saying, you were using this to lead up to your treble. Now, I know because I remember seeing it, and I'm following you at this point because I've already got to know you by the time you did the treble, and you not only did you do the treble, but you came second, and you did it in 58 hours and 21 minutes. Now, to those that don't know, can you just give a brief description of the length of distances for the treble so they can get an idea?
Yeah, so it was a 7.2 mile swim in Lake Padan, which anyone that's been up there and swum there, it's like a really cold lake because you have all the runoff from the mountains, and it can be sort of 10, 11 degrees, and I think that year it was about 11 or 12, so it was really cold. So 7.2 mile swim, and then 348 mile bike ride basically around Snowdon. And it was 12 laps. So it was like a 29 mile loop around Snowdon, and where you went up Penny Pass on each lap. So 12 of those. And then it worked out as about 76 mile run at the end. But the first part of the run was up to the summit of Snowdon and back down. And then you did, I think it was 13 laps around the lake. But it wasn't really a run up Snowdon, to be honest. By that point, it was more of a walk, a fast walk up and down, where it's an opportunity to really get some food inside you at that point, because you're eating throughout. In that 58 hours, I had a sleep on the bike in the back of a car for about 25 minutes.
Not while you were riding, obviously.
Well, it's funny you should say that.
You probably nodded off at some point, but
I was nodding off and going up Penny Pass in the dead of the night on the first night. I can't remember how many miles in, and Matt, a friend of mine, who was like my spanner monkey, who was looking after the bike, and in the night time you have to have a car like leapfrog you for safety, because there's no reception. In certain places no reception. The weather, with the different climates, one side it's sunny, the next it's hail, then it's everything but snow, really. So they sort of leapfrog you as you go around, and I was just swerving backwards and forwards across the road. I was asleep, so they like, right, you need to sleep. So I was just put in the car. I sat down, I closed my eyes, I was gone, and I said, look, just give me 20 minutes and wake me up. and then wake me back up, and that was enough to just keep me going.
Yeah.
And then after I finished the bike and went up and down Snowdon, I had, or was it before? No, I think maybe it was when I came up and down. I had like a 45-minute sleep. So you're just literally running on empty, really. But yeah, but then the lake laps were quite tough. I mean, like Hope, which is where we first met. There's about 600 foot of climbing per lap on the brutal run, and you're doing 13 laps of it. So it's a challenging run route for sure.
And when you finished it and you were given your medal, was it bigger this time, the medal? Was it still tiny?
It was bigger. It was bigger, yes.
Okay, so you got a slightly bigger, and you got a nice little you got a nice trophy as well. How did you feel knowing not only did you come second, but you just finished the treble?
Oh, well, do you know what? I mean, I've never won anything in my life, really. And I never, I stood on the start line at the side of the water. And by then, I've got, over the years, I've got to know all the guys and girls that do the brutal events and stuff. And some, all really good friends of mine now. And I remember standing there at the start thinking, there's no way I'm not finishing this. Whereas at the double, I had no idea what was going to happen. Whereas I had trained really sensibly, I trained really hard, and I knew I was going to smash it. I didn't think I'd be anywhere near the top. And so coming out of the swim, I was like in fourth place. On the bike, I was in third. By the time the bike had finished, I was in third place. And then there was a guy called Rich Fuller, who is a friend of mine now. He really strong, really fit, really just smiled the whole way through. And we got, and a guy called Mark Dodson. There was four of us, all within, apart from TC, who was like 2 or 3 hours ahead. There was three of us that were sort of neck and neck. And Doddy would have come second, but I think he must have had something happen with his nutrition, because he spent 7 hours being sick in his tent. He still ended up coming fourth, mind. But what happens on the day happens on the day. But I remember passing him, and me and Rich, I had the real bit between my teeth. So, I was properly racing with 30 miles to go, running to try and catch him, because I was in third place at that point. And he must have went for a sleep for like 10, 20 minutes. And I managed to slip past him in like 2 laps to go or whatever. And I remember with passing then Mark, who was back going by then. And I was just crying, telling him, I've never won anything. And I knew as long as I could hold on to second or third, I would get a trophy. And, the trophy was a piece of slate with a little plastic plaque on it, which is probably the cheapest trophy you could ever produce. But it was the meaning behind that and what that represented. And, I crossed the line, and by then I'm not worried about small medals or anything.
So I got a second place in the Manners King George. This is the trophy I got. It's the only trophy I've ever won, right?
You did so well at that.
Right. It's nothing like amazing, but it's the sentiment behind it. It's got Prince William, King George penny on it, and a tally. That's brilliant. The best thing I've got ever.
I really like that. I really like that.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like you, I've never won anything before in my life. I've always seen, if I was to get a podium, it'd be a bonus. My main aim is always to complete the event. Because I wouldn't get a finish time. I wouldn't get a trophy or PB if I didn't finish. So it's always my main game. And to get that was fantastic. I can't complain whatsoever. So you finished the treble, and then after that you decided to cycle to Land's End to John O'Groats and back again. What was that for?
Yeah,
you do that 1,800 miles or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, just over 1,800 miles. That wasn't for. I mean, that wasn't for me. That was for my stepson Jake, our eldest, and he So he was 17. I brainwashed the kids from a young age to like sport, and took them to a cycling club and all those things. And Jake loved riding, so he decided. I mean, John O'Groats, Land's End to John O'Groats has always been on my bucket list of things to do. And when he said, "Look, I'd really love to ride Land's End to John O'Groats," I thought, brilliant. Wendy's going to let me go because I'm supporting one of the kids.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he said, "I want to do it. I want to do it for charity. Will you help me?" And I was like, I couldn't answer quick enough, really. I said, "I'll do anything you want. I'll drive a van for you. I'll ride with you. Whatever you want me to do. I'm there." He said, "I'd really love you to ride with me." And trying to get time off and all that sort of stuff for both my wife and I to fit it in over the summer holidays, was difficult. And she had decided, actually, rather than her have to drive a van up the country, and we would just go on our own. And he wanted to do it unsupported. So we didn't have panniers. We had before bike packing became popular. We had bought some bike packing stuff, so we weren't really laden down with panniers and stuff. And we went as light as we possibly could. And so we were doing Land's End to John O'Groats. We started looking at the logistics of getting back from John O'Groats back home, because we lived down in Devon, and having to cycle back to Wick and then get a train to Inverness and then fly, and then get our bikes back. And then at one stage there was a couple of other kids from the cycle club, the kids cycling club I used to help at, wanted to ride John O'Groats to Land's End. So they were going to drive a car up, because they were like a year older or so. They were going to drive a car up. We were with their bikes. We were going to swap over and then come back. And that never really sort of materialized. And so jokingly, and there's always a bit of dispute with Jake and I over who made this decision. But I just said, "Look, all seems a bit of a faff, really. Should we just ride back?" And he said, "Yeah." So it turned into Land's End to John O'Groats and back again. And because of time off from work, I only had 14 days. So we were against the time. So we had to go up and down in 14 days.
Well, you were downhill on the way back, which is the main.
It didn't really work. It doesn't work like that, though.
I like winding people up that have run Land's End to John O'Groats and vice versa. Because when you look at the map, it's downhill, isn't it? The fact that it's actually not, and it's up and down like a lunatic, is mad.
But mentally, it is downhill, and that because this is this is not about being fit. It's about having that mental capacity to just being able to endure. And the Land's End to John O'Groats and back wasn't even really about cycling. In the end, it was to do with equipping this young man with some real good qualities that he can take forward in life. So when things are a challenge in his life, whether it's for a relationship or work or illness or whatever, he's got the mental strength to say, "Do you know what? I've been at my lowest mentally and physically, and I can smash this," and he can overcome any obstacle. So it's just equipping him with things. And
for you, though, it was about spending some time with one of your children and doing something that you enjoy with him, which is we're not always lucky to have that moment. So you took it by the balls and just went, yeah, of course.
Do you know what we sometimes you hear lots of horror stories about stepchildren and hating your stepdad or your stepmom or whatever. And actually, I suppose we've been together since the kids were quite young anyway. So the kids have grown up with an influence from me to a certain degree. And everybody else in their life, they for me. So then to be asked, can I come and spend 2 weeks with him? Doing something we both really love and really get to know him. What an absolute privilege! And I remember, at the start down in Land's End, Jake's dad came along and. He came up and he hugged me and he said he's really proud of us, really proud of what we're about to do. Can you please look after my son? And you think, oh my gosh, this is a massive burden now on me. And I had two things to do. One, get him up and down as safe as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And two, get back in time for my wedding anniversary. So those were my two things, and I cracked them both. But what an absolute privilege to just really get to know him. And on like by day 2 or 3, so if this is going to work, we need to treat each other like adults, not adult child. So you're a twat or whatever, and you say,
Yeah.
cheers, mate. But so
sometimes that's needed though,
amazing.
isn't it? When you're doing something like that where you've got dangerous roads, you've got long distances to cover, you can't treat people differently. You've got to treat them like you would treat yourself. You've got to like if I'm a twat, you tell me I'm a twat, and vice versa. Just otherwise you won't get through it, will you?
Yeah, but he grew up. I mean, he grew up massively. From when we joke it's like a boy to man tour.
Yeah.
To the extreme, right? Because he was only 17 at that point, and we joke then going forward that with the other kids, because he was older. So what are you doing for your man to boy tour? Or your boy to man tour? Yeah. And I've gone on and done something with one of the with Zach, one of the younger lads, where we did a running thing in a week, and the girls were a bit behind. So Offa's Dyke, because you ran it, didn't you? This July, I was supposed to be going with my eldest daughter to do Offa's Dyke north to south with her.
Again, downhill. That's the way I went.
Exactly, yeah. I was going to tap you up for some info, actually.
I've got some books to send you if you still plan on doing it. I've got some.
No, we obviously with COVID and everything, we're going to do it next year now.
Yeah, but if you want some books, I could send you some the books that I got to save you.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'll send them up. They're all tallied and stuff like that.
I bought her a book, Offa's Dyke book and map for Christmas. She wasn't that impressed, but she'll love it. She'll love it, I'm sure.
So moving on, we've got to talk about this. You're now an exclusive member of a certain club. Now they say obviously running a marathon, you end up in the 1% club. So if you're in a 1% club for a marathon, what does that make you being a Deca Ironman? For the listeners that don't know what a Deca is, it's 10 Ironmans. Now you can either do it 10 days, an Ironman each day, or 10 continuous Ironman, which is what you did, 10 continuous Ironman. What does that mean now you're Deca?
The thing is, I don't really think of it like that. It's one of those things. Because of my, at that point, I suppose, because that was last year. So last year, although I've been involved with brutal events, helping and stuff over the years, I've now sort of gone into partnership with Claire in brutal events. So last year we were doing the second running of Deca UK, which yes, I would have loved to have done, but I'm helping.
You're part of it, yeah.
Part of it. So it's difficult to do. So in order to get a podium, a first place, you set up your own race, don't you? So about a month before the Deca up in York, I'd set up effectively my own race for me, so I could go and do to do a continuous Deca. I suppose I don't, because you're surrounded. Lots of my friends. I'm not in the minority here. Lots of my friends have done Decas because
it's not a big club though.
It's not a big.
I know you say you've got lots of friends that have done it. I've got lots of friends that have done certain things, but when you scale it down, it's not really that big a club.
No, I suppose what sort of the Deca man, is a guy called Wayne Kurtz who lives over in America, who has just raced so many Decas. He's got his own book about the Deca. He's like the Deca expert. He's a really nice guy, really helpful, really approachable. And for him to say, "Well done, you've done it. Welcome to the family," and circulate that on social media. I think I'm really humbled by that. That it wasn't a race, but you're recognising that I've completed this challenge because. I'm certainly not going to go and cheat because you're not the only person you'd be cheating is yourself. so you do the mileage, you do the distance, and to be sort of recognised in that respect. And I think last year, before DECA UK, maybe 200 people in the world had done a DECA, on either format. So, having said that, take Wayne, who's maybe done 4 or 5 or whatever. He's done both formats as well, and there's and some of the other guys. So that reduces the field even more. So there's at that time there's about 200 maybe in the world that have done this. But then it's not to say that it's not possible for anybody, but it's just, I suppose you've got to have the interest and the will to do it. And it's always, since starting triathlon, it's always been, I've looked up and thought, wow, that's amazing. How is that even possible? And I suppose I did the continuous version. So I did all the swim, all the bike, and then all the run. But amazing experience. And I absolutely loved it. But and it was easier than the double, for sure. I'm not trying to make it sound really easy, because I went to some bad places, but from what I've learned over the years, and from talking to people, and luckily I like you, I know lots of coaches and things, and you're like a sponge. You just take all this information. What I really love now, and I'm possibly looking to sort of coaching in the future, is people asking me for advice. And you think, well, listen, this comes with a caveat that I am not a coach, and some of my methods are very, very off the wall. But I'll happily share any information with you if it helps you achieve your sort of goal, really.
Yeah.
And that's part of that's the community that you're in, and the fact that everyone's willing to help each other and share their trade secrets, let's call them.
So let's break the DECA down, all right, into obviously the event you did. So as I said, it's either 10 days of Ironman or 10 continuous. You did the 10 continuous Ironman, so you had to do 10 Ironman swim distances first. Give us a little insight to how the swim went for you, and how you took on the swim, and what it felt like doing it.
I mean, it's 24-mile swim, so I've never swum 24 miles.
That's 24 miles, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So myself and Mark had done a challenge in Guildford back in April, I think it was, because my DECA was in June, which was where you swim a mile on the mile every hour in Guildford. And Mark went on and did 24 miles. I did 16 and binned it. And my view on that was, this isn't my A race, this is training. And I started to feel ill, and I thought, if I get ill, I'm going to lose 2 or 3 weeks, and it's going to screw me, because my race is only in June. So I called it a day. He went on to do it, which was just amazing to watch, and some great swimmers there. So you had to swim a mile, which took anywhere between 30 and 40 minutes, I suppose. Then you had like a 20-minute break. Then you had to swim again. So approaching the DECA swim, it was in a 25-meter pool. So for anyone that doesn't know, that's 1,520 lengths. And try and find a pool that's going to open for anywhere between 16 and 20 hours for you. It's impossible. Luckily, Devon and Cornwall Police, their pool's shut now, but at the time, their pool was open, and I managed to convince them to let me have their pool for the day.
Awesome.
So I had a lane in their pool, started at 5:30, and I had the pool till 9 o'clock. So I was up against it, because I had in my mind, I said it will take me 16 to 20 hours based on some weird maths. But then I ended up doing it in 16 and a half hours. Luckily, they threw the keys at us and said, lock up on your way out. And Sammy, the guy down there, was brilliant. He really let me off, because during the swim, I just stressed about the time, and I could see the minutes trickling away, thinking I'm going to be over by an hour here. And I was over by an hour. But luckily they said, look, by about 4 o'clock or something, they just said, look, stop stressing. We got the keys. Just take as long as you need. So I would swim a mile. Literally swim a mile, stop at the side of the pool, eat something, drink something, swim another mile. And so, to begin with, the stop was like 10 seconds, quick swig of a drink or, you know, whatever, or some liquid fuel, and off again. And you just do that. And every mile, 64 lengths, I'd be tapped on the head when I had 2 to go. So I knew I'm going to get a break in a second. And I swam the first 11 miles, no wetsuit, because indoor pools, this is an indoor pool, it's like 27, 28 degrees. It's really warm, and I didn't want to wear a wetsuit. But by about 11 miles in, you're fatigued. You're starting to feel cold in the water.
Yeah.
So I put my wetsuit on for warmth, and then you're like a boil in the bag. So every so often I'd be swimming, and as I took a stroke, I'd just open my suit, flush some water down,
Yeah.
and then carry on. And again, this is where I say, well, I always say to people, look, I'm happy to share what I did, but it's some of it's not quite right. And you know, my swim training was 18 swim sessions,
Yeah.
you know, including the long one, which was like 16 miles every hour. But I would go to the pool, swim for it. I hate swimming. I don't love. I love open water swimming, but I don't like pool swimming. But I had to get my head around the whole pool swimming thing. I would go to the pool, swim for an hour. Swim for a mile, sorry,
Yeah.
and then get out. And that would be my training. I did that about 18 times. People said, well, how on earth did you swim 24 miles? And I suppose my thought process was, if I can swim a mile, all I've got to do is swim 24 of them. So in my mind, you're just swimming a mile.
Yeah, you just broken it down. Yeah.
And I approach running exactly the same. I approach cycling exactly the same. If I'm doing a 100-mile run, it's a 10K run, but just multiple ones. And
I use Hope 24 as an example for how I break down my runs. Every 5 miles is a lap. So it doesn't matter whether it's an A to B or it's an actual lap race. Every 5 miles is a lap. That's when I take on something. That's the routine. And obviously the same sort of thing for you.
Yeah. So when I went swim training, I would swim a mile, and I would concentrate on everything. I would concentrate on pushing off the side, gliding as far as I could. You know, I would concentrate on every stroke, every sort of breath, my feet position, and a way I thought, if I could swim a mile really efficiently and really effectively with no energy whatsoever, if I could do that, then I'll save myself to the end. Which it worked. It worked really well. What I wasn't expecting, which was quite funny then seeing it at the DECA UK, is everybody experienced the same thing as me pretty much, which was the next day when you get on your bike, it's like someone smashed you in the face with a shovel, because your body, your upper body, and your neck, and everything is just in bits. Your back, it's just in bits. And I spent my first day, you know, so I swam for 16 and a half hours. My plan was to, you know, start at 5:30, finished at like 9:30, 10 o'clock, whatever. And then drove home, you know, half-hour drive home, whatever, had some food, got into bed by about midnight. And I was up at 4:30 to get on my bike and start. So I had that
4 hours rest and then straight onto your bike. And that's, again, 10 times the bike distance. So what's that? So
it's 1,120 miles.
1,120 miles of cycling, continuous. Obviously, you stop for breaks in between. Your back's in bits from the swimming and your shoulders and stuff like that, and you're now having to lean over. Did that make it really awkward at the start? And did you start loosening up as you got into it, or did it just continue to spiral for your back? And
no, that first day on the bike was a really tough day, and I later on in the day, after I was, you know, I was quite sick, threw up everywhere, and I thought, I don't know how I'm going to carry on. How can I end this? How can I end this and save some face? It's really difficult. After I puked up everywhere, luckily my wife was across at her sister's, and she didn't see me being sick on the carpet, running up the stairs, all over the bathroom floor, all over the toilet. And bless him, my mate Martin, who's one of my crew, said, and I said, I've got to go before Wendy comes back, otherwise she's going to stop me doing this. Because it wasn't a race, I wasn't getting a medal, I didn't have to do it, I was doing it because I wanted to do it. So I got back out on my bike, went away. Well, Martin, bless him, he cleared up everything. And Mark Dodson, who went on to win DECA UK, had come down from North Wales where he lives stayed with me for 2 weeks and supported me every day. He was out with me in the morning, out with me in the evening, and then during the day he would work. So when later on that evening, after we had finished that first day, we were eating dinner just before I went to bed, and he said, were you sick earlier? And we'd told Wendy at this point, no. It's just I could hear someone being sick whilst he was trying to work on a conference call. But yeah, so that first day on the biking, my plan, you've got to have lots of different plans, and I had an A to Z plan plus some numbers and some symbols as well of how it would all go. And that first day, I cut my laps short by 2 laps. So I was already on day one, because my loops were 26-mile laps. I was already 52 miles down on my daily target on day one, because I had to cut it short because I felt so bad. And I had some food, obviously shower, oil on, try and recover in some way, into bed for like a 4 hours sleep, and then again up at 4:30 on the bike by 5. And the next day it's just like you're approaching every day is a new day. Even though it wasn't. So although it's, some people just ride until they fall asleep or they power nap, and because mine wasn't a race, I was doing it on public roads. My running and my running mostly off road, but my riding was on country lanes, open roads, and I didn't want me to be asleep, crashing into cars or hedges. And she would only support me doing it if I had a period of rest. And looking back now and things I've experienced and seen, I would do the same thing again. Just give myself that 4-hour break.
Yeah.
Realistically, it's not 4 hours, because by the time you get showered and stopped and you don't sleep anyway because everything is killing you in the night, it's maybe 2 hours if you're lucky. And it's then just that new taking. Yesterday was bad or was tough. Today's a new day, and you just take on that challenge. So my riding was five days I rode for, or 5 days.
5 days. And then obviously you finished your ride and you kicked off your cycling shoes and you laced up those trainers to start your 262-mile run. What was your head doing at this point? Were you feeling confident now because you smashed the swim and the cycle? Right, so we got cut off there, but going back into it, you got off your bike, you kicked off your shoes, and you started your 262-mile run. Where was your head at this present time?
I suppose I got off there was no big celebration after the bike. Literally, no one there to clap me home or anything like that. I literally rolled up with Mark, got off the bikes, came inside, and I was just in that routine, that same space. Need to get showered, get bathed, get oils on, get some food inside me, and get to bed and try and recover as much as I can. And in my mind, and and having spoken about it with Mark, the race hadn't even begun at this point because it was going to start tomorrow. And I think I started running on the Monday actually. So Sunday night off the bike, and it was like, there's no, in your own mind, it's like what's happened before is totally irrelevant now.
Yeah.
This starts tomorrow morning. And I woke up 4:30, up, out of bed, running shoes on, not different because now I'm not putting a bike, not having to put on bike kit and get on a bike. And then it's just like, okay, let's do this. And I run around here all the time, and I'd really planned my route well. And some would say, and I don't know, do you know Sidowski, Sid?
Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
So Sid came down for 3 days to support me as well. And he really took the mick out of me over my run because
he wasn't too impressed with your route you took.
I certainly didn't pick an easy route because at a Decker, most Deckers are pretty flat. You have a flat ride, flat run, and they're multiple loops. My bike was 45,000 foot of climbing, and my run, the first day of running, I did about 4,500 foot of climb, and you just think, what have I done? Yeah. So it was a tough run, and the beauty of it, I suppose, is I was the race director, so
Yeah.
and I could change it. So by the Wednesday, we changed the run route because I wouldn't have been able to finish otherwise. And you could look at that and think, well, you cheated, you didn't do the
No.
course that you were doing, or you could think, actually, do you know what? It wasn't about, I'm not trying to prove anything. I just want to finish. I want to raise some money, awareness to the two charities I was racing for, and I want to finish because I don't want to be doing this again.
Yeah.
And the first day, can't remember how long I ran for, but I sacked it at 68 miles on day one because I've got to get to bed and got to get to sleep, and I was pretty much there or thereabouts what I wanted to do. But 68 miles with 4,500 foot, having swam and biked the previous 6
Yeah.
days was really tough. And that first day, I don't know if it's the first day or the second day, but I was, because I was only ever going to give up if I was seriously injured or it was medically unsafe for me to carry on. Because I did, you're putting your body under a massive amount of stress and pressure. And that day, I wasn't in the end of that day. I wasn't injured. I wasn't medically unsafe. I was just in a whole world of pain, and it was just really hard, really tough. So, but again, it was like, yeah, get to bed, 4:30 up, 5 o'clock out, and
Get that
you're away
routine
again.
going again, and just crack on until finish.
Yeah.
So you finished your 260 miles, you finished your bike, you finished your swimming, you became a decker. What was that like when you finally took that last step across the finish line? What was that like for you?
Well, I mean, it was an amazing experience, and actually, Wendy, my wife, has supported me wholeheartedly over the years, and I'm sure sometimes now she just goes, what next, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But she was really great, really supported me through that. And Dottie was fantastic, come down for those 2 weeks. And without those two, I would never have finished, really. And all the other people that came to support and cheer me on and everything else. But I suppose for me, you finished, and it wasn't like there was no big celebrate. There was no big celebration, and I purposely wanted it like that, really, because I've experienced that before, where you devote all your training and your life and all your time to this one thing, and then afterwards it's done and it's finished, and then there's this massive void in your life where
Anticlimax,
you're not training, and then you have the Ironman blues, or whatever they used to call them. And I've experienced that when I raced Ironman, and I just didn't want that feeling. So over the last sort of the couple of years running up to that, I didn't leave. Everything's important in your life: your family, your children, your friends, work, training. But not, that you can't just bin everything. You can't just bin everything just so you can train, just so you can do this event. So I had a real good balance, where if I missed a session, it didn't matter. If I had a family thing to go to, I'd do that instead. And I didn't leave because I didn't devote 100% of my time to training for this thing. It was just like, well, that's done. That's great. I've got now a little bit more free time. And it was like, and it didn't really sink in. It didn't sink in what I had done, really, what I'd achieved. To be honest, I still don't think it has. When you think about it, it's massive. And sometimes when I'm out running or riding or whatever, and I haven't swum since. I'll be honest with that. And
I don't
if
blame you.
I have to do a swimming thing again, then I'll swim for a couple of times before. But that'd be about it. But I haven't. I'll be out riding or running, and I'll think, oh, this is really hard, and that 5 miles will be really tough. And I'll think, how on earth did I do that? How on earth did I do that? But I think I just got myself into the right mindset, the right mentality about doing it and why I was doing it, and having that support around you. That you know, could I do it again another day? Probably could, but do I want to? No. You know, there's lots of other things I'd like to do instead. You know.
Okay, so first thing, how did you recover? How long did it take you to recover from that? Because a lot of big events, it takes people a while to recover. Some, some don't fully recover for like a year after an adventure like you've done. So did it take you a while?
Yeah, I mean, it took me a good good 3 months or so to feel anywhere near normal. My body was just empty. One of my friends, Phil, who had popped up at various times during the race, he said to me afterwards when we went back to work, he said, I obviously saw you deteriorate over those 10 days. And he said, it really dawned on me when I saw you on the last day when you changed your top, because I changed my t-shirt on the last lap to put my RAB t-shirt on, and he just saw this emaciated figure with a little pot belly, because obviously any fat that was on my body had gone. I was just bone, apart from my belly, which was just constantly full of food as it went on. But yeah, it took a good 3 months, and I'm very sensible, with the right minerals and nutrients and that sort of thing. And I had swapped to a plant-based diet for the Deca in the January because I thought it would give me a better chance of completing this Deca by a plant-based diet. And I think if I'd been eating meat during it, I probably wouldn't have finished, because I think my body would have just become this massive clogged up thing of, protein and meat inside. Whereas with the plant-based food, your body's digesting it much quicker. So because you're eating and eating and eating all day long and all night long. So, I've continued to eat plant-based food because it just seems to be healthier and it seems to work for me.
It works for you, which is the main thing. So what's next? Once we're out of this, obviously touch base a little bit on the Offers Dyke. Is there any other big goals and adventures in the James Page story or life?
No, I mean, I'm obviously I'm a partner with Claire in Brutal Events now, so bad year to become a partner.
I feel for you guys, and
all of our events have been postponed to next year, so it's been tough. That's been tough. So going forward, next year hopefully will be bigger and better in that regard. Again, the Office Dyke with my daughter, my eldest daughter, and then I'd had enough points for UTMB over last year. Well, I had them for 2 years, the points, because I did all my races in all the big races, 3 of them in the 1 year to get enough points, and I didn't get in both times I applied. So those points have disappeared. So I think next year I'm going to do some big longer distance races, get some points, and have another bash at trying to get onto the UTMB start list. Not just because I think it would be an amazing place to run. I did a race in Switzerland a couple of years ago, and just amazing. You're up in the mountains, and you just and even I did the first year of the UTS Snowdonia thing, did the 50 with a friend of mine, with Mark, and I just kept stopping. I kept stopping at the top of a hill to look back where we had just come from at the other hills, and then you look forward and you think, have we just come over that? You think, yeah, wow, are we going over that? Wow, just blown away by the beauty of it. So I'm going to do some mountain racing, I think, next year, sort of running, not doing any triathlons next year. Going to purely just concentrate on longer running, really.
Fancy the Hope 36? Come join me with the Hope 36.
I might do, actually. Yeah, I might do. It's local, isn't it? And
it's local.
Yeah,
you know everyone, and it's 6 hours of lovely running around Newnham Estate.
I might come and do it as a training day.
Exactly. This was that's great. So it's quick fire questions now, buddy.
All right? No worries.
Sign off. Okay, so I think you've already answered this prior, but I wrote it down. Question number 1: swimming, cycling, or running? Favorite out of the 3?
Cycling.
Yeah, I knew your least favorite is swimming. Okay, question number 2: favorite non-Ironman ultra event? That's not one of yours.
Non Ironman ultra event.
So an ultra, that's not a brutal event because you love them. I know them.
The scenic trail in Switzerland, brilliant, fantastic. I recommend it to anyone.
Brilliant. Your favourite food to snack on the go when you're doing these mammoth things?
Dried apricots.
Well, different. What's your favourite tipple? What do you like to
A
relax with?
pint of Guinness.
Nice. Good replacement for iron. I like it.
Yeah.
Favourite bit of kit that you have to use when you're out on your run or your cycle? You got it like a buff, or you got a favourite bit of kit?
I love my dry robe. I mean, who hasn't got a dry robe? It saved me. Oh,
I have been thinking about getting one, but I haven't got one yet.
I tell you what, in between laps at Hope 36, when it's a bit chilly at night and you're having to sit down and having a cup of tea or whatever, pop your dry robe on. You're a bit new man.
I'll definitely endeavour to get one. Okay, what's your favourite movie?
It's got to be Star Wars.
Nice. Okay. Do you have someone who inspires you?
My kids inspire me.
Good.
Yeah, all of them. They're very different, all of them, in their own way, but they're amazing.
Good brownie points there as well. I like it. If you could run with anyone, who would it be?
I love running with my wife. Actually, she don't necessarily love running with me, but I love running with her. She she doesn't enjoy running with me.
You are scoring some good brownie points tonight. If you could race anywhere in the world, obviously COVID, regardless, anywhere in the world, where would you like to race?
North Wales.
Nice. And secondly, and finally, sorry, pineapple on a pizza, yes or no?
Yes.
Nice. Okay. I thought I'd throw that one in there with Alex. I did far right. So yeah, you've gone for pizza, pineapple on it. Nice. That's brilliant. If people want to follow you and doing your ventures and obviously Brutal and stuff like that, where can they follow you and how can they get information about you and obviously your events as well?
Yeah, so Brutal Events, just put in Brutal Events, I think it's the first one that comes up. And you've got the logo T-shirt. I'm bad. I didn't have a T-shirt on, so very, very well done. You've got some brownie points there as well. So Brutal Events, and they're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and the website.
Well, Claire once used me as a model, you see, because I'd sent her a picture when I was in Okinawa 2 years ago when I was away on that mammoth deployment. And I was standing there looking over the Pacific, obviously with the ultra running part facing the camera, and she loved it and used it. So, I do my bit to help mates out where I can,
Yeah, and there's running events, there's swim, there's something for everybody, really. And then I'm on social media, Iron Jedi Bra, on Twitter, Facebook.
I'll drop the links in the description so people can find you. That's really good, James. It's been fantastic to catch up with you. Loved it, mate, obviously. Especially with the technology issues and obviously the house building, and that's what I like to do is try and keep it real and keep it raw and all this sort of stuff. What I'll do is we'll say goodbye on the recording, and then we'll have a quick finish chat afterwards once I've
nice to mate.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you for coming on my show, mate. Much appreciated it.
It's been a pleasure. Having listened to your show and some of the people you've had on it, I feel like a bit of a fraud, I'll be honest.
No, mate. We're all average Joes. A lot of the people I'm speaking to are
normal people,
are just like you and me. And if we can make a difference to someone's life, be it something we talk about mental health or something, just going on an adventure and changing their life, like Alex did, quitting teaching and going on his mammoth barefoot runs across Europe. If it makes someone suddenly change their mind about how they live their life, then surely we can make a better world from it.
Yeah, I've done a talk, a couple of talks actually, not necessarily about the Deca, but like the road to Deca. And my first slide is about, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. And I'm not a public speaker, so I find that really difficult. But it's going to make me a better person. And then my aims of my talk, one of the number one aim is to inspire at least one person, to challenge them to do something that they wouldn't normally do. And whether that's, reading a book, jumping on the spot, hopping, running a marathon, whatever. If somebody can get something from me talking, then I'm made up. Really, it's a winner.
Yeah.
But thank you, mate. It's been lovely chatting to you.
It's been absolutely fantastic, mate. I'll pause this for now, and I'll speak to you in a sec. See you later, mate.
Cheers, mate. Take care. Bye.
So that was James Page. What an absolute pleasure catching up with him. I followed his journey on pretty much most of his events that he's done, and especially the Deca. It's unbelievable. 10 continuous Ironmans. If you like what you watched or you heard, please download, subscribe on all the podcast streams. All right, give us a review because it helps us get up there as well. And on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Click those notifications so you know when we're coming on next. It'd be much appreciated. But for now, until next time, I'm the ultra running Matlow, and you've been listening to If My Feet Could Talk.